How many discounts does USAA Auto Insurance offer? Too many to say here. Multi-vehicle discount, safe driver discount, new vehicle discount, storage discount, legacy.
How many discounts will you stack up? Visit USAA.com/auto discounts. Restrictions apply.
Hey, it's Paris. You know I love sparkly things, right? Like stars. Duh. And thanks to Hilton and Auto Camp, I just slept under them. Picture me, serving looks by the fire outside my luxurious Airstream, making s'mores with the kids, while a national park is our backdrop. The great outdoors meets Hilton hospitality. That's hot. Explore all the new ways to stay at Hilton.com. Hilton for the stay.
This episode is brought to you by Indeed. When your computer breaks, you don't wait for it to magically start working again. You fix the problem. So why wait to hire the people your company desperately needs? Use Indeed's sponsored jobs to hire top talent fast. And even better, you only pay for results. There's no need to wait. Speed up your hiring with a $75 sponsored job credit at Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply.
With a major selection of the looks your kiddos love starting at just $4 in the Walmart app, a new school year means a stylish new them. Who knew? Find skater skirts and Crocs that say, I'm casual but cool. Sparkly sneakers that say, it's my classroom, you're just learning in it. And preppy polos that say, I'm the teacher's pet, even if they're mommy's menace at home. Find their favorite styles starting at just $4 in the app. The Walmart you thought you knew is now new.
This episode is brought to you by FX's Alien Earth, the official podcast. Each week, host Adam Rogers is joined by guests, including the show's creator, cast, and crew, in this exclusive companion podcast. They will explore story elements, deep dive into character motivations, and offer an episode-by-episode behind-the-scenes breakdown of each terrifying chapter in this new series. Search FX's Alien Earth wherever you listen to podcasts.
Hello and welcome to the Assassin's Creed Lorecast. We are so excited to bring you this show.
Our podcast is all about unraveling all of your favorite mysteries from the Assassin's Creed games. Each episode will be talking about a different topic in the Assassin's Creed universe. From Pieces of Eden, Solar Flares, and the Isu, to the Hidden Ones, the Order of Ancients, and of course, the Animus, we will seek to uncover it all.
So join us and maybe even take a leap of faith.
Hello and welcome to the Assassin's Creed Lorecast. My name is Shelby. You also know me as She-Cup, and I'm here with my wonderful co-host.
Hey, I'm Austin, or Teacup.
That's right, and we are back with another episode about another historical figure, and this time we are going way, way, way back in history. So Austin, why don't you tell us who we're talking about today?
So we are talking about a British Briton warrior named Boudica. Now, you might know who she is, you might not. I personally did not actually know who she is before I started doing the research in here. And so she came about because obviously Shelby and I get the topic lists together. And so Shelby put this person on there.
That's right.
And so I researched this. So we're going to talk about her, but before we get started, I do want to give a content warning, a trigger warning for rape and violence. We will be talking briefly about that, and so if that is a trigger for you, this might be an episode to either skip or just prepare yourself for anything going with that. But I just wanted to give that warning before we started. Shelby, you want to just share a little bit why you put her on the list when you were making the list?
Well, if we're being really honest right now, you had a lot of white dudes on the list, so I was trying to diversify.
To also be fair to me, I asked her to do exactly that.
Yes. So that was the first thing. And I think I was just Googling like lists of interesting historical figures, powerful historical figures, people like that. And also pulling from some of our patron chat episodes of people that we think would be interesting to learn about in Assassin's Creed. And this was one that came to mind because I think the interesting thing about her is that she is a powerful ruler in a time where female rulers are very, very uncommon, and where most of the societies in our world are not allowing women to lead, are relegating women to domesticity, domestic roles. And so she's one that kind of breaks that mold. And I think it's really important for us to talk about characters in the historical record, people in the historical record who maybe don't live up to our expectations of what people who lived back then should be. Because the reality is, I think a lot of times people on the internet complain when people in video games prior to 1970 are women in video games prior to 1970 do anything outside of the home. But the reality is there are many, 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 many women throughout history who have had jobs and lived outside the home and done all kinds of amazing things and been in positions of power. And we should talk about those more. So for all of those reasons, and also simply because I find her interesting, I added her to the list.
Yeah. And so just to give a time frame, we were talking about basically the 1st century of ancient Rome, which really only gets talked about a lot when you consider like Rome itself and kind of the Middle East and North Africa, because that's really where a lot of our Western civilization history is happening in the 1st century. Especially across the border of like Christianity is starting to emerge, and that's causing a lot of issues. You have Roman emperors declaring themselves gods and declaring them people to worship them. There's a lot going on in the 1st century that some stuff gets overlooked. And it's important to note that almost everything that we know about Boudica comes from Roman points of view. And so there's not a lot of just like brief mentions of things that happened to her. And so I don't have a lot about her personality. She really is just like, and then this happened and moved on. I don't have a lot to like analyze about who she was as a person. And so a lot of this is going to be speculation when we get to, I mean, it's all speculation, but a lot of this is just going to be like based on the things she did. This is what I'm saying. Rather than like when we take someone like Nikola Tesla, who we know a lot about personality, we can look at the things he said and say, this matches up with this. We're not going to be able to do this.
Right.
Boudica.
And I mean, I think that that's not unique to her. This is an issue we have with any kind of ancient historical person. The more you go back in history, the less information we have. It's just the reality. And the same is going to be true for us in 2,000 years. You know, same thing. Even though we have the internet, like things are going to change, things are going to be different. So that's just part of the historical record. But I am interested to dive in. So let's get started.
And to give just a little, before we do that, like imagine if everything that people in 2,000 years knew about you was based on your Facebook profile or your social media account. That was your entire personality was based on that. But
not even that, based on one post, basically.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oof, that's yikes.
A scary proposition.
So she is a queen of an ancient British tribe called the Iceni. And I looked up how to pronounce that, and that is how you pronounce that, Iceni, at least according to the internet. It's an ancient tribe in eastern Britain during the Iron Age or early Roman era. Again, that's like the 1st century. So she leads a failed uprising against Rome. That's her big thing, is she has a failed uprising against Rome. She is mentioned by 2 major Roman historians, Tacitus and Cassius Dio. So these are the historians that mention her. She was the wife / consort, depending on which historian you're talking about. She's wife or consort of the king of the Iceni tribe, and she has 2 daughters with him. So the drama starts when this king dies. And in his will, he leaves the kingdom of the Iceni tribe to his daughters and the Roman Emperor Nero Caesar. Now, this is really not... This is my opinion, but it is backed by a lot of historical fact. Nero Caesar is the worst. Nero is a dictator, and he burns Rome, blames it on the Christians. He does all kinds of crazy stuff, and he's not a good person. So naturally, when he gets word of, hey, this king left his daughters the kingdom, but he also left it to you, Rome basically says, well, fuck that other part of the will. We're just going to take this land. Who is surprised? Is anyone surprised that Rome would do this? So, according to Tacitus, the Romans ransacked the country. They pillage villages. They destroy the king's estate. And then there's conflicting information about what happens next. According to Tacitus, Boudica is then flogged and her daughters are then raped. And then this is what kind of catalysts Boudica to lead her rebellion. The account, according to Cassius Dio, does not mention these abuses, but it does mention a lot of Rome basically taking back money that was loaned to them under Emperor Claudius and basically like levying taxes and doing all kinds of stuff. And this is what is the cause for the rebellion. In Dio's account, Boudica gives a speech inciting the Iceni people into rebellion, citing that life was better free of Rome and that their financial benefits that Rome brought under them were not worth the price of their freedom. In my opinion, it is likely that both of these stories are true. Just based on what I get of accounts of Rome's behavior to people they quote-unquote ruled. And the historical accounts vary because the cause of the rebellion is not clear. And from another point, the historians who are writing this did not witness the events. They are writing from secondhand accounts that are telling them what happened. And Shelby, in undergrad, she has a history minor, and so she learned kind of like the method at which we talk about history. So I just want to give her a little bit of a moment to kind of talk about how our historical record is fallible.
Well, yes, very much so. And I mean, I think most people know the maxim that history is written by the winners. And that's true. That is so true. History is definitely cyclical, but it's just the reality that history is written by the winners. And so I wouldn't say that we need to take the historical record with a grain of salt. But what I would say is that we should caution absolutely believing 100% of one specific source, especially when we know that that source would have been biased against the person that they're writing about. And the reality is that these 2 Roman men are going to be biased against this Briton woman because, number one, of course, she attacked their people. But more than that, the Romans didn't believe that women really had rights. They didn't believe that women should be ruling like this, for sure, no. And they had very strict roles in the family and the home, like very, very strict. The Britons did not have that as much. The Britons were more of a like almost wild people group, more similar to Vikings than the Romans. So first of all, the Romans that are writing about this woman are going to have a biased opinion and they're going to look down on her. And so we have to keep that in mind when we're interpreting these historical pieces, but also even more important than that, we have to keep in mind that the Romans won this battle against Boudica's tribe. And so they can kind of spin their narrative in whatever way they want. And we've seen that happen all throughout history in so many different ways. that I can't even begin to list them, because that happens all the time, and we know that is true. One really great example is if you think about the desegregation movement and the movement for equal rights for Black people in America in the 1960s. Back then it was a very contested debate. It was a very contested discussion. Lots of places across the country were not integrated, including outside of the South. Most of the movement, of course, was focused in the South because that's where things were the worst. But if you asked folks nowadays in 2024, people who were alive back then, most people, I would say, oh yeah, I supported Martin Luther King. He stood for great things. Like, I really supported him and what he had to say. But the reality is that is not the case. The majority of white people in the 1960s did not support what Martin Luther King had to say. Now, most people who are alive today were children in the 60s, so that may not be a completely fair comparison. But the way we look at history, the lenses change as we get further and further from it. And that may be at play here too.
Mm-hmm. And our opinions are swayed by the prevailing opinion that is from the victor that writes history. For example, like, we generally think of, because of those of us who live in America are taught about, like, the American Revolution was a good thing, like freedom is a good thing, our way of governance and everything is a good thing. We tend to look at the world and history as anything that is contrary to that is a bad thing. We can debate a lot of stuff, but I don't want to get too bogged down in that. I just want to finish her story. So obviously, after whatever atrocities happen, whether it is a financial thing of taxes and taking back money that was loaned and other things like that, or the assault and abuses that suffered under Boudica and her daughters, the Iceni tribe rebels against Rome and leads a massive rebellion. Some historical accounts number their army at over 200,000, which is a pretty large force for an isle that is very, very small. But, there's over 200,000 people in the place where I live right now, like the city that I live in. And like, 200,000 people can occupy that small space, but that's a big army for that time period.
Well, yeah, and also the army is most likely primarily men. Yes. So it triple that number when you include the women and children in their tribe.
Mm-hmm.
But also something I want to bring up a little bit is I'm going to personally lean toward the theory that there was debt involved somehow, because I just think that makes sense. I think both things are probably true, but just to speak toward the debt part of it, them feeling like, I don't want to owe any money to Rome, and the benefits that they give us are not worth it, makes total sense, because the further you are from the center of the empire, the fewer and fewer benefits you got from it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, the Romans, like, they had their cobblestone streets, like, they took care of Rome proper. But when you get into Britain, like, they're not coming there to make cobblestone streets. Like, yes, there are definitely Roman architectural pieces, but it's like bridges and towers and things like that nature. They weren't building cities like Rome in Britain. And so that makes sense that they would have less benefits than a Roman citizen living in Rome would.
Mm-hmm. And I want to give a more modern example, quote unquote modern. When we take the Revolutionary War into consideration, up until the 18th century, the 1700s, England was leaving the colonies alone for the most part. They could govern how they want. They could do what they want. As long as they paid what taxes they owed, they left them alone. Then the 7 Years' War, the French and Indian War happens, and now suddenly Britain owes a lot of money for these wars that were fought on the colonies and everything. And so Britain says, okay, we're going to tax you now because we need to pay for this. And the colonists are like, no, you're not. Like, we didn't vote for this. We didn't do this. And they're like, you've left us alone, and now we won't don't want to do this. It's similar with Rome. Rome cannot overly police everything, every single corner of the empire. It's just not physically possible. And a lot of times in these far corners, as we learn from other historical accounts, like journals of Pilate and other people who are in these like far corners of the Roman Empire removed from Rome, they're really like, they don't get a lot of support from Rome proper. They're really left to their own devices, and they're like, Rome is only considered with the bottom line, basically. They're like, are you collecting your taxes and giving us the money that we need to support the empire? And you're keeping your people in line? Okay, we don't care if your citizens are well off or your roads are working or anything like that. Like, you're not going to get a lot of Roman involvement. So I totally get it. I think if I had to guess is that the abuses might be exaggerated. I think Boudica was probably flawed because she was speaking out against the Roman levies, especially since Rome was ignoring the will and they were contested rulers. I think she was probably at least flogged and abused, and maybe her daughters too, as an example for that. The I might have exaggerated those abuse to incite rebellion, but I think I agree with you that the money thing is probably more likely a root cause of this rebellion. So they have lots of numbers. They actually outnumber the Romans in Britain, but they just are not at the same military machine. Rome has better technology, they have better training, they have better soldiers. And they're crushed by the superiority of their tactics and everything like that. According to Tacitus, neither women nor children were spared the Roman slaughter. Now, it is important to note that the idea of history as this basically like factual account that is just the facts is a relatively new idea.
Yeah, objectivity in history is definitely not something that would have been practiced in the ancient period. And I would argue, and I think most historians would argue, is not something that is practiced today either. Though historians do try to be objective now, whereas in this time period in the Roman era, they would not have tried to be objective at all. They were just, it's more of a, in this period, it's more of a, they're writing down their experiences and what they've heard kind of thing. And they're throwing their own lens onto it. There is no lens of being objective.
Yeah, I definitely agree with everything that you just said there. And I also want to say that like historians in this time, and definitely before this, they would use hyperbole a lot. And if you're not familiar, hyperbole is a literary device of like an exaggeration to get your point. An example, you know, I'm so hungry I could eat a horse. No person could actually eat a whole horse. Maybe, I don't know. But it's an idea. Now you understand how hungry I am. I'm starving. I'm ravenous. You need to feed me right now. And they use this. And a lot of times we get this sometimes in the Bible too. We'll get accounts where they'll say they left no survivors. They killed all the women and children. They did all of this. And it's a hyperbole that is more inclined to say that like they were totally defeated versus like actually they murdered all the women and children.
Yeah, because I mean, it is very difficult to kill every single person in a battle. Like there would have been people who fled, just people who weren't there when the battle took place. So it is hard to say they killed every single person.
Mm-hmm. And it's not long after this that Rome is actually overrun by quote unquote, to quote, use their words, barbarians from the north, which includes some of the Briton tribes that are doing that. Like they obviously didn't eradicate these people.
Right. Right.
And it's just a general thing of that. Like this is a hyperbole. Like no, they didn't actually murder all the women and children. And I just want to say like, yes, there are good soldiers or soldiers who are like, oh, I got to follow orders. But generally killing someone who's waving a sword at you is one thing. Killing a defenseless child is a big step for an individual.
Yes, for sure.
Oh, yeah. No, I got to talk about her death. So Boudica does not actually die in the battle. We have conflicting reports of what her death is, which is natural. Tacitus says that she poisoned herself, and Dio says that she fell sick and died. Most historians say these are probably the same thing.
Yeah, because wouldn't you, if you're poisoned or poison yourself, wouldn't you also be sick?
Exactly. But she is giving a lavish burial and buried in Britain, which we'll talk about when we get into her Assassin's Creed involvement. Because even though we have very little mentioned about her, like her Wikipedia page would probably barely be 2 pages typed.
Like her real Wikipedia page.
Her real Wikipedia page. We don't know a lot. And she's like kind of like a chapter or a paragraph mentioned in these historical accounts. She did get mentioned in Assassin's Creed.
All right. Well, let's go to the mid-break, and then we can come back and learn about how she's involved in AC.
Want to live better? We got a lot of work to do. Join Chris Hemsworth in National Geographic's new Disney Plus original series, Limitless. Live better now.
I'm diving headfirst into cutting-edge science to uncover 3 powerful secrets to living better right now. The growth that occurs through any challenging experience is really what we seek.
Chris Hemsworth stars in Limitless. Live better now. Now streaming on Disney Plus and Hulu.
It's showtime.
My cat Freddie loves to be brushed and cuddled. But stirring up his cat allergens meant sneezing and itchy eyes. Then I found Purina One Live Clear. It's cat food that reduced the major allergen and my suffering in as little as 21 days. Now, we feel closer than ever. If you have issues with cat allergens, you really need to try Purina One Live Clear.
Try new Purina One Live Clear today. Purina One, a difference from day one.
This episode is sponsored by Friskies, who would like to tell your cats hi. Now, if that didn't get your cat's attention, there is one thing that always does the trick. Just pour some Friskies crunchy food in the bowl and you'll hear those paws come running. Works every time. With so many Friskies choices, you can always bring your cats running from their secret napping spots. There's always more to explore. See for yourself at friskies.com or visit your local store.
Ma cos'è? Shoot! Shoot the flying demon!
Quite a carriage you got there. Where did you buy it, if you don't mind me asking?
Ask all you want, Freddy. You'll never get an answer.
Damn it all. Was it my eyebrows?
Yes, and your face, voice, and body.
What have you done? We used them. They were not ready for firing. You could have gotten us all killed. Let me see. His breath is more fatal than our cannons. Only when you 2 fools are shooting them. There, try it.
All right, welcome to the middle of the show. This is where we talk about all the things that have to do with the podcast and not the lore of Assassin's Creed. So the first thing that I have to talk about is our Patreon. You can join us, you can financially support us and come on the show once a month and get extra special merch and all kinds of other rewards. You can find us at patreon.com/AC-Lorecast. And if you can't support us, then financially, the next best way to help us out on the show is to leave us a rating, a review, a comment, whatever you can to support the podcast. And I do have one to read today. This one comes from Peter R., who commented on our Catherine the Great episode. And he said, "This is a really good AC podcast. I do have a master's in history, so I just want to say that the Romanovs were way worse than you said. The start of the Russian Revolution was Bloody Sunday, and around 1,000 peaceful demonstrators were shot down by the Tsar and another 6,000 thrown in jail. Thank you so much for letting us know. That is an important clarification. And you're right. Russian history is pretty bloody, so maybe we'll get into that with another historical figure. We'll see. But yeah, you can leave us a rating or a review on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you listen to our podcast. And another great thing you can do is come and join our Discord server where we talk about all things Assassin's Creed, all things Dragon Age, all kinds of games. So definitely come and hang out with us. And our last little thing that we want to talk about in the mid-break, I'm going to turn it over to Austin to discuss the Assassin's Creed Shadows delay to next year.
Yeah, so Assassin's Creed, if you haven't noticed, Assassin's Creed Shadows, announced by Ubisoft, has been delayed until February of 2025, February 14th, coming out on Valentine's Day. Whatever. I will say, like, I'm with a lot of you, I'm disappointed by this news. It does help my bank account, but it is disappointing because I wanted to play the game, and I know a lot of us were really, really excited about that. But I also just want to clarify some things about what I think is really happening. I think that they announced that they're going to launch this game on Steam as well as Epic Games, which is different than how Ubisoft has done before. Normally, the game's released on Epic Games, Ubisoft Store, and consoles, and then like a year later, they come to Steam. This is different. There are probably deal negotiations that have to be made for this game to release on Steam as day one that couldn't be made in like a month and a half. So that is probably something that has happened, and Ubisoft has probably done a cost analysis and basically said, we can delay this game to make sure this goes because we'll get a better stream of players. That's what I think is going on. I think this is all driven by them getting this game to release on Steam on day one. And I do think that like there's a lot going into that, to getting a game to release on a platform, because you got to make sure its launcher works right. You've got to do a bunch of stuff to make sure. I mean, any of us who are BioWare fans know the tragedy that is the EA app and its launcher. So we know that can be very, very complicated. So I want to say that, and I just want to quash, like, there is no way that they're writing Yasuke out of this story, like, or decreasing his role. Like, that is not happening. Anyone who thinks that's happening, you're deluding yourself. Like, this game is done. They were ready to release this on the 15th of November. They're not going to make drastic changes for that. They might make some bug changes that they didn't have, bug fixes that they didn't have time to fix, but they are not going to reduce his role or cut a bunch of content or do that. That's just not reality.
No, it's not reality on so many levels, but also because, do you really think that Ubisoft is going to cave to your fandom backlash from people who are really not even fans of the series to begin with? No, they're really not. And I think that writing him out it would honestly, at this point, even if it was possible, which it's not, would get them more backlash. Because it's not like all these people who criticize the game are going to come running back to them. No, they're grifters. Like, it's not. And I think you could absolutely have criticisms of the game. That's not who we're talking about here. We're talking about people who are bashing it online, who are grifting, who are making money from criticizing this game. Like, if you just have your personal critiques, that's something different. I've mentioned a few. I have too. That's normal. That's not who we're talking about here. We're talking about people who are making boatloads of money by monetizing their videos and baiting the algorithm and making rage content. And I think most of these people are not really fans of most video games. They just want to hate on it. They just want to make money, and they just want to rage bait their followers.
And I just want to say, like, people have quoted the fact that they changed Assassin's Creed Odyssey after the backlash of the Legacy DLC, or the Legacy of the First Blade DLC, and people being upset that you were forced into a romance. They changed the dialogue option.
Right.
They changed something so small and so one-off. You are still in that. You still have that child no matter what. Like, they didn't change the choice. They just gave you the option to say, like, I didn't do this for love. I did this for other reasons.
Yeah. But that's a criticism from fans. These are criticisms from people who are not even, people who haven't even played the game yet. I feel like that's a big difference.
I do agree, but like there is no reason to freak out at this delay.
Yeah.
The game isn't changing. They're not going to cancel the game. They're just delaying it, and I think it has to do with them putting the game on Steam.
Well, and I mean, we also need to talk about, there are some big games coming out right now. And so this probably gives them some breathing room, and it also gives them a chance to work out bugs, because that is the biggest thing that I hear from gamers who rate games badly, is that the Steam version, specifically the PC versions, have so many bugs in them. And I get it, because it's harder to work toward, you know, a PC version that has all different kinds of makes and models, whereas a console, you've got the one version, but it also gives them time to figure that out.
Yeah, I think all in all, it's going to be a good thing. And I want to say, like, Jedi Survivor was delayed a month, and it was still pretty buggy. So I want to know, like, how 3 months should be a good time.
Yeah.
So.
Yes. So let's get back into it and learn more about Boudica.
Mint is still $15 a month for premium wireless. And if you haven't made the switch yet, here are 15 reasons why you should. 1, it's $15 a month. 2, seriously, it's $15 a month. 3, no big contracts. 4, I use it. 5, my mom uses it. Are you playing me off? That's what's happening, right? Okay, give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, $15 per month equivalent required. New customer offer first 3 months only. Then full price plan options available. Taxes and fees extra. See mintmobile.com.
This episode is brought to you by Nespresso Virtuo Coffee Machines. Ready to enjoy the bold flavors of barista quality Nespresso iced coffee at home? Simply fill a glass with ice and press the brew button on your Virtuo Pop machine to enjoy rich double espressos roasted to stand up even when chilled. Refreshingly bold iced coffee. Refreshingly easy to make at home. Visit Nespresso.com to shop now.
Who says you can't be the topic of conversation for all the right reasons? The Hyundai Tucson Hybrid pairs bold presence with advanced technology and sleek style. It's everything you didn't know you needed in an SUV and then some. Okay, Hyundai. Visit HyundaiUSA.com to learn more.
Malaka. But that madman, the self-proclaimed Bishop of the Ruins, is our biggest critic. He calls our playing the devil's bagpipes.
I will sleep with anyone as long as they agree to be executed in the morning.
Like Xanthivis.
He was well satisfied with his bargain. Who is this toothsome fellow?
My queen, this is,
Well?
It is a generous offer, but I've already pledged my life to this woman.
Aya, you have chosen well.
All right. So, into her AC involvement. She's mentioned in a couple places. We don't actually see her, but I do have a little lore thing that I think might be a mention of her involvement in the game. So, Boudica is mentioned by an Order of Ancients member in London in AC Valhalla. Basically, he mentions her sack of the city in her rebellion, which is pretty impressive because that's like 900 years later. 900 years later. Eivor visits her tomb. In the Fallen Hero DLC, her tomb is one of the tombs that contains the armor of the Fallen Hero, which is Isu armor. So she has the bracers and boots in her tomb, suggesting that Boudica was buried with Isu armor, which means that maybe this was something that she used, and that she either, maybe had Isu DNA or came across this. I think personally this bends to that she would have had involvement with one of these two organizations, because I don't think the everyday person is coming across Isu artifacts.
I do agree with that very much.
So I think there's something in there of her involvement with the Hidden Ones. Are very early in this, and we know that they reached to Britain. Like, the Hidden Ones established bureaus in England and all of that stuff. So it's possible that there is some influence here and some Isu armor going on here. And then lastly, this is actually her first mention in the Assassin's Creed universe, but I did them kind of in chronological, historical timeline order. There is a statue of Boudica on Fleet Street in London in Assassin's Creed Syndicate. I don't know if it's actually there. It probably is, because those two games are pretty accurate to the cities. Shelby's going to look it up.
I am looking it up. So it is a bronze statue in London, which is an interesting statue. It's titled Boudica and Her Daughters, and they're kind of like on horses, like she's got like her arms lifted and stuff. It was put in its current position in 1902, though. So Syndicate takes place before that, doesn't it?
Yeah, because
so it's a little bit inaccurate, but it does say that it was started in 18 1856. And then the sculptor died in 1885. His son kind of finished it, but so there's a little bit of a gap in where it came to be now. So I don't know if it was in a different location earlier.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, that's really interesting. So I think all of this leans to kind of saying that she had some kind of involvement in this ancient war. And so this will kind of give it assassin or Templar, and you can kind of share. We don't have a lot of evidence, like I said. We don't know a lot about her personality. We don't know a lot about like what she believes. We just have accounts of what she did. Which, the maxim of actions speak louder than words will ring true here, I think. I think the only way you could argue for Boudica being on the Templar / Order of Ancients side is that she is inciting rebellion so that Rome can gain greater control and the Order of Ancients can gain more control in Britain. I think that is the only way that you could argue that she could be on a Templar side. But from the assassin's point, I mean, she literally incites a rebellion in a historical account by giving a speech that is basically like, nothing is worth our freedom. There is no wealth or price or security that is worth our freedom. That's pretty Assassin's coded.
Yes, it is. But I do disagree with your assertion that the only way she could be part of the Order of Ancients is to try to lead a rebellion to gain control of England, because I do think that the implication of the Isu armor could imply some correlation there. Because as we know, the Isu have always been more associated with the Templar Order and the Order of Ancients than the Assassins and the Hidden Ones.
That is true.
Always. And so her having this armor, not only having it, but being buried with it, to me implies that she could have been a sage. She could have been, somebody with Isu DNA, as you've said. So to me, I'm kind of like, well, was she working with the Order of Ancients? And like, maybe there was kind of a disconnect between the different groups of the Orders of Ancients. Or maybe it's just she disagreed with the direction that the Roman order was taking. Mm-hmm. I think that's a possibility too. But I do, at the end of the day, agree that the reason why she leads this revolt is far more assassin-y than Templar. But the Isu armor throws a wrench into it for sure for me.
I think I agree with you on that a little bit. I didn't think about the Isu armor, even though I brought that point up. So I also think that it's interesting because the Order of Ancients and the Cult of Cosmos and all these Proto-Templar organizations, this really goes back to their ability to want to control and thwart what is called the line of heroes, which is like the line of Leonidas. And like all of these ancient Greek heroes that we get in this were actually demigods, Isu human hybrids. Achilles, Hercules, Perseus, all of these heroes are that, and we learned that in the Fate of Atlantis DLCs. And then we learn that this line of heroes from Leonidas through Cassandra leads all the way to Aya. Which means that like this ancestral group that inherits this goes back to all of this kind of debate on what the Order of Ancients calls the Tainted Ones. So I do think that the Isu armor could be in that, especially if Boudica has inherited this kind of legacy of heroes from the Hidden Ones. Because we really have to acknowledge here that we are only, it's like 40 to 60 AD or something that this happens in, which means we are really only 100-ish years, not even, removed from Boudica and Aya, which in a historical timeline is not a long time.
True. That's a good point.
So we're still in a relatively young period for the Hidden Ones era compared to the Order of Ancients, which goes back thousands of years.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a good point. But it does, to me, I think this is the hard part about covering characters that are so far back in history, is that we just don't, like, we have enough information to make an educated guess, but there's so much we don't know.
We don't know what she was like. We don't know, maybe she led this rebellion and played a political game and knew that she could incite people like this. Like, we don't know what her motivation is because we don't have journals from her. We don't have people talking with her. All we have is almost tertiary sources about her.
Right. Well, it sounds like we have settled on probably both. We're not really sure.
Right. We're not
Sounds
sure.
like our answer here.
We're not sure. The evidence that we have leans assassins, but there's not enough evidence to say that definitively.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think we're ready to wrap up.
All right. Well, as always, thank you so much for doing the research and bringing it for us. This is a really interesting episode, and I'm glad that we covered this one. But until next time, thank you for listening to the Assassin's Creed Lorecast. We'll see you next week. Thanks for listening to the Assassin's Creed Lorecast. You can find us on Twitter at AC Lorecast.
If you have any lore questions or topics to unpack, join our Cups Podcasting and More Discord server. It's the best place on the internet. You can also support us financially through our Patreon. Find us on patreon.com/Assassin's Creed Lorecast. The Assassin's Creed Lorecast is part of the Robots Radio Network. For more information about the Robots Radio Network, join the Discord server via the link in our episode's description.
If you enjoyed the show or learned something new today, please subscribe, leave us a review, and join the Patreon. And if you enjoyed our intro and outro music, make sure you give a big thank you to Pipeman Studios. Thank you, Pipeman. Thanks again for listening to the Assassin's Creed Lorecast. And always remember, Assassins, stay in the shadows to serve the light.
When a wasteland detective and a vault girl cross paths, no criminal is safe.
You're both under arrest.
Don't move a muscle if you know what's good for you.
Based in Bethesda's Fallout series, follow Walter and Bunny as they traverse the Texas Commonwealth and New Vegas, busting big crime rings.
We'll need all we can to expand into Vegas territory.
And surviving anything the wasteland can throw at them.
It's him! It's the Mothman!
Featuring a series of nail-biting narratives and guest stars from across the Fallout community. It's anybody's guess what thrilling case is up next.
War never changes, does it, Bunny?
No, it certainly does not.
True Vault Escapades, a Fallout audio drama. Available anywhere you get podcasts.